I've often been asked the age-old question of, Kyron, I only have $500, I only have $1,000. How can I go about spending that to receive the most amount of returns in the 2025 bull run? So of course, I thought long and hard about it, hence we have this video today. And essentially the question is, what would I do with that $1,000 and how would I go about spending it in terms of making the most amount of money in 2025? So guys, one of the criteria, the biggest criteria in this video is going to be the fact that this $1,000 can very easily be thrown into a few different micro-cap projects. We cross our fingers and hope for the best. But of course, I'm guessing if you're in the position of someone who has $1,000 or $500 and you can't actually lose it, that's what I'm thinking about here. So this is going to be the most risk-adverse, essentially safest, and definitely quotation, that safest way to go about this strategy. So let me now take your attention to the screen, and I'm going to, of course, give you this sheet for free, so you guys can go ahead and interact with it. I still haven't figured out a way that the program I use can go ahead and you guys can download this sort of sheet, because that will require you to buy the premium version of it. But all I ask in return for this video and giving you guys this sheet for free is just a like. You don't have to do it, but of course it does mean a lot if you guys could drop a like down below. So again, what we have to establish here is how much can you afford to lose. And oftentimes people will come around and say, you know what, Kyron, I'm happy to lose half, or I'm happy to lose 10% or 20% of my portfolio, i.e. essentially in this case, I'm happy to lose $200 or $500 or $100. But again, we're going to have to try to not lose anything again because of the situation we've hypothetically been given here. And in this instance, we don't have to go all in and risk the entire 1,000. We can still be very risk adverse. We just have to follow the clear strategy I'm going to mention today. And I'm going to give you multiple options, of course, if you are someone who wants to follow this guide, so that if you are someone who's risk averse, right, or someone who is going to be completely on the risk side of life, you can go ahead and go the maximum possible risk you want. But of course, this is also going to be suitable for the person who wants absolutely zero. So let's get into the number one thing, and that's airdrops. Okay, so airdrops are probably one of the most underrated things in my opinion. I personally never used them in the start of my crypto sort of journey. I never ever did any airdrops, but now I understand the true power of them. People are making 10, 20, 30 plus $1,000 with very, very little when these airdrops. And yes, honestly, a lot of them are free. Okay, so we're looking for free airdrops on promising projects minus any sort of gas. Some things like Layer Zero over here or ZK Sync might require you to do some transfers, and so that's going to require you to use some gas. We just want to make sure we know how to function these sort of transfers and we're not wasting money, essentially, right? A lot of these things nowadays don't require much money, of course, but there are some things, right? There are some of these projects that will require you to be a bit more involved and possibly spend some more money. I believe GMT over here, this is partially paid. So for you to get like the most bang for your buck, the most meat off the bone, I am 90% sure you have to go ahead and purchase NFTs. So this is one of the things here. Everything is linked back on this sheet over here. You can click and interact with all of these. So you can, of course, go ahead and see them for yourselves. But this one over here, of course, as you go through it, you can also purchase the NFTs as well. So this might not be the best one, but of course, what we're also looking for here predominantly is the quality of the projects, because quality of the project is going to be pretty important, right? Because the airdrop, the tokens, when you receive the airdrop, are going to be worth more the higher the price of that project. Plain and simple how it is, okay? So just remember, minus the cost of you going into these airdrops with gas, because that will be used, of course, to do the transfers or some of the steps required to receive the airdrop. You can always retrieve the capital you purchased if you need to purchase tokens for things like gas or to hold tokens temporarily and things like that. And always consider opting into free airdrops. And if you are spending money, ensure that you are buying, you know, whatever that might be. For example, with GMT here, you're buying those NFTs on a quality project that you have vetted, that you're happy to hold them on for a while to obviously flip. We're always thinking about flipping things here. It's essentially like a biosphere, right? We're trying to make sure everything we spend is for a reason or a net positive benefit, not just net positive, like extremely net positive, okay? One thing I will make sure I pretty much turn your attention to is the cheat sheet here. This cheat sheet is a website called airdrops.io, and it'll essentially take you through all the ongoing airdrops. Now, I've given you the link to the hot airdrops essentially here, but of course at the top you can go to latest, so on and so forth. So I suggest you guys go on the hottest. Meld, which I have mentioned over here, is probably one of the better ones right now. These guys have a massive airdrop going on, and to participate, use this link down here. Okay, so in my opinion, I'm gonna take out $50 for this, for the gas and things like that. in my opinion, if this was me, again, I wouldn't go for GMT, or at least I would give it a go, but I wouldn't go ahead and purchase NFTs. Total waste of money, in my opinion. We have a very select amount we can choose from. Now, I want to make a quick mention here of Layer 0 and ZK Sync. These have been going on for quite some time right now, so keep in mind we are on the end of this. So in my opinion, Meld is most definitely one of the most important and best on this list. But of course, you really should be going through every single one of these as much as you can, interacting, and most importantly, farming them every single day if you can. Interacting, some of these steps that you're required to go through can be done every day to boost your rewards. So just keep that in mind. So again, we have about $950 remaining. Number 2 is launch pads. This is where things get extremely fun. Now, this is something I do have quite a bit of experience in. I use it predominantly in the 2021 bull run here, and I can tell you right now, I have profusely used CoinList. Now, this is one of what's called the Q-based launch pads. They're like their own sort of centralized, it's just a website essentially where projects can launch. And Republic as well, these guys also do crypto ICOs, but they also work on like fundraising for actual companies and businesses as well. So launch pads allow us to buy pre-sale tokens, often 2 to 10x cheaper than IDO price. This is genuinely a great option right now, as many new altcoins are launching to anticipate the 2025 bull run. Chances are US citizens might be screwed here. Cough, cough. You guys can hopefully draw the picture. Not financial advice, of course. Use at your own discretion. Now, I want to say for the record, as you know, a lot of the sort of US citizens will know, a lot of these also crypto-based platforms will require some sort of KYC, so you might have a bit of a hard time there, even though you might be able to change this old guy, your IP basically, right? And so I want to say something for the record with when it comes to launch pads, is that you do sometimes have to spend a minimum amount of money in order to get into them. So CoinList particularly has them between $200 to $500 at a minimum. Okay, so this kind of can be out of the realm of possibility for us, which is why we must choose our investments very carefully if we decide to go that route. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do in just a second here. And also, as I mentioned before, well-known crypto stake-based launch pads. So what I mean by crypto stake-based is essentially you have to stake X amount of the tokens in order to be able to enter into a whitelist round or a set guaranteed round as well. Now, with the amount of money we're using and have, we're not going to ever be able to buy the tiers, especially for BSC pad over here, that will allow us to get those guaranteed tiers. We have to essentially go on lotteries, okay? And this is my preferred method over the other two because we can get into more projects here, and they're pretty much, most of the time, there isn't a minimum. It's just open. You can put whatever money you want into them. So in this case, BSC pad, the bronze tier, the very, very lowest tier, to actually access this, you get one lottery ticket. It's $110. Silver tier, 2,500 BSC pad tokens, which is about $275. So still quite steep. You only get 3 lottery tokens. And I might say, the reason I've chosen BSC pad is because BSC pad is actually a quality launch pad. These tokens were literally like probably, I think like 60 to 80x more expensive in the last bull run. So we definitely are getting a pretty good deal over here. And the reason, again, why I've chosen BSC pad is because even though it's technically, Binance Smart Chain pad, because it's run under Bluezilla, which is like the governing body, I guess you will, they have a lot of other launch pads. They basically have launches on other networks as well, but they just host them on BSC pad and open them up to the other network-based launch pads under their wing as well. But in my personal opinion, the best we can kind of go with here would be PokerStarter. Okay, so PokerStarter is, again, it's kind of like BSC pad, but it's, under the Polkadot sort of wing, but it does everything, right? It's got a whole heap of different projects from different networks. And in my opinion, it is that more premium sort of product. And right now, it's actually a viable option. I have always been against PokerStarter and always been for if you can get a guaranteed lottery in BSC pad, but we don't have the luxury in this case, so we are working off how many tickets can you get. Of course, it does depend on how many people are entering these things as well, but in my opinion, it makes sense. Every 250 polls is equivalent to 1 ticket. So we go 250 is about $75, you get a ticket, so on and so forth, okay? So as you can see, it goes up quite dramatically. And now the only issue here is that you must still purchase the tokens when you win a slot, okay? So just like, over here with Republic and CoinList is you just pretty much sign up. When there's a token sale, you click enter. If you want to get in, it's all queue-based, so you randomly enter in the queue. If you get the slot, you get the slot, and you can buy, but there is high minimums. On this case, there is still the, side thing where you have to stake the tokens on the native network to enter, and then if you get in, you have to also buy, okay? So you can see the conundrum here. It's this or that, and it all depends on your circumstance. But in my opinion, I prefer these guys over here, simply, right? So there is often the ability to enter at low amounts versus the queue-based launch pads, as I mentioned before. Typically, it's not set at a minimum. You can put whatever you want in there, okay? And so again, what I'm doing here is signing up to CoinList and Republic, just signing up, creating my account, doing the KYC, so I am ready for these sales, just in case there are some of these big sales. I'm actually reviewing a project in a few hours. You guys will see that is launching soon on CoinList that I believe is a quality project. And so in that case, if you hear buzz around it, you can get in because you're already KYC'd and stuff like that. And only entering sales, of course, if the new money enters our hands. So if we make money on launch pads or through airdrops, of course, then we can reinvest that back into like CoinList and Republic, at least in my opinion. But I'm going to focus here on buying 1,500 Pulse tokens worth about $450 right now, and silver tier on BSC pad at $275. Okay, so silver, and then I'm buying 1,500 of these tokens. Okay, so we'll have about 6 tokens over here, or 6 lottery tickets, and about 3 lottery tickets over here. But this way, we'll be constantly entering ourselves into new sales. As you can see, BSC pad right now, we have the tier list over here, and of course, this will go up as well in the bull run. So at worst, we definitely will make some money on these tokens itself, which is very important to remember. And as the bull runs tend to launch and launch and launch, at least get more mature, we find more projects launching. It just makes sense, okay? I personally, honestly, I'm seeing more and more deals come through here on the back end for reviews on my channel for these new projects waiting years and years to launch, because they know the bull market is right there, and starting now, at least starting to market their project, is the best way to go ahead to receive the most amount of sort of investment in 2025. And over here, this is kind of what the PokerStarter website looks like as well, okay? So lots of pretty much quality projects being launched on here, guys. A whole range of different gaming, for example, layer, dApps, layer 0, layer 1s, whatever it might be. There's a whole host of projects that's launched through this over the time, okay? So ultimately, once we've done that, I'm gonna have about $225 remaining. So number 3 is IDO/new tokens. So promising new altcoins are preparing to launch in this year. And so number 3 is IDO/new tokens. So promising new altcoins are preparing to launch in this year to anticipate the 2025 bull run. Like I just said, these can be a great time to buy, as hype can push them up quite dramatically. Now, these are often quickly sold as well, so this can be very risky. Often it is smart actually waiting for the initial retracement. So in my opinion, I'm looking at 3 projects here. Nillion, which is where I'm going to focus my attention to. They definitely are launching at the end of this year. Layer 0, which again, they haven't actually officially launched the token itself, but there is a token written into the smart contract itself, written into the code itself. So in this case, there likely will be a Layer 0 token. We just don't know when it's going to launch. In my opinion, these guys are going to be pretty smart. They will probably launch, if they're going to launch a token at all, in the bull run, or at some point in the bull run, probably just before it. And obviously Base. This is Coinbase layer 2 essentially network on Ethereum right now. It's a scaling solution. And of course, these guys have a pretty diverse ecosystem already. Now, you don't have to, of course, invest in these projects individually. You can go ahead, like in Base's example here, run through the ecosystem, find promising new projects, and look at them, okay? This does take a bit of time, but of course, if you're dedicating, like me, an extra $225, which essentially is almost 25% of our entire portfolio in this case, you want to, of course, make sure you're buying, or at least looking to buy, the best possible projects that have the highest upside and ideally haven't launched yet, or at least very, very new and can experience a very quick, run up, basically from good news, all right? So in this case, what am I doing? Well, I'm actually going to be buying Nillion. So I'm going to be using all this money because, again, Nillion is going to probably have possibly a community sale round at some time at the end of this year, which means we'll get in before it actually IDOs or launches publicly as a tradable token. And so I'm hoping for that, but if not, I'm going to wait for the launch. Now, there is definitely a downside, as I mentioned 2 moments before, about waiting till launch, because this is from Mina Protocol. This is Mina's chart when it first launched. And as you can see, it doesn't show, but it actually ran up like this. And obviously people that bought into these tiers over here, or people that were in the ICO rounds, for example, they managed to sell up here. And what happened? Well, they dumped, and this gives us a great entry point down here to then wait and to buy. Now, this was, of course, over a few months, so keep that in mind. It's not something that can go very quickly, even though it definitely can, depending on the size of the project and how much interest there is. But these are the sort of things we can definitely scalp from websites like CoinList, for example, right? So we don't have to, of course, enter in the CoinList sales themselves, just like Mina, because Mina was one of the projects that was actually launched from CoinList itself. We can go ahead and just simply find the ones that are launching and wait for a possible instant retracement. And last but definitely not least, layer 1 native staking. Now, this is going to be a bit of like a safe hedge for those of you who want to be a little bit more conservative with your funds. So choosing which altcoins you are happy to hold until 2025 and staking on them might be a good idea as a safety net. So if you want to stake on these networks, you're pretty much counteracting inflation and making some passive income on the side. And this might be a bit of a controversial take, but if you're talking about $1,000 portfolio, don't worry too much about inflation. The amount of tokens you have are what matters come 2025. Of course, inflation does matter. If the project has 100% inflation, that's a pretty bad thing, of course. But as long as you're making more tokens back, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So you'll have more tokens come 2025. But first, please consider the following. The unlock length of the tokens. So, you don't want, the last thing you want is in a bull run, for example, having staked on a project, trying to unstake, and that's like a 30 or 60 day wait. You know what I mean? You could be really screwed over by that. So make sure the unlock lengths aren't that long at all. And if they are, make sure you're pulling out very latest early 2025. Trustworthiness of the wallet. So of course, you're going to have to stake on a decentralized wallet, so to speak. So make sure you, vet that very carefully, and you're not staking on or at least delegating through a wallet that can be very dangerous, or at least isn't very secure or well known, okay? So security is number one in this case. And should you stake or delegate? Well, if you delegate, make sure you're not going to get slashed. What does this mean? Well, if you delegate, this process is where you have a node on the network and you delegate your token, so you secure that node even more. And the higher the stake of the node, the more that money that's been delegated to it, the more chance it has to receive the rewards. More rewards meaning more rewards on your end as well. This is dangerous because oftentimes networks have penalties. So if the node does something a little bit wrong, or it might go down temporarily, they can sometimes slash the rewards or slash the stake, which means you, yes, even you, delegating can lose some of your funds instantly, okay? So be very careful. Make sure you assess these things. It's all publicly available on all, layer 0, layer 1, layer 2 networks, okay? And to give you some idea of what I'm talking about here, I only hold 2,000 MENA tokens in my wallet, and I've received almost 50% of my total investment back over time since 2021. So 2 years. But just remember, we have 2 more years until basically 2025, or at least the bull run will be kicking off, mid 2025, right? So you still have some time. As you can see, I almost got 50% back. If you bought a whole heap of your tokens and you got 50% back, that is still more money. So as you can see here, I've just consistently, passively been receiving MENA every single month. And honestly, it is quite a lot. So obviously this goes back quite a few years. And so we have 2 more years to go. So now it's not too late. And I'm not going to be leveraging this step personally, okay, until I've yielded some returns from the airdrops, launch pads, and or the Nillion launch. Simple. I want to be a bit more on the risky side of it. Okay, I'm still being risk averse. And so I want to have these rewards returns back first. Now, overall, guys, our goal with all of this. And so guys, overall, what is our goal? Well, with such a limited amount of starting capital, we are likely going to have to compound rewards from 2025 into 2030 for maximum profit. So you can kind of think of 2025 as a catapult rather than our final destination in this case, okay? So farm as much as possible until 2025 to achieve financial freedom in 2030. Now, I'm not going to go over this example because it might take a few minutes here, but essentially, I pretty much show you guys in this case how even if you don't catch the maximum price of a project, in this case, I use HBAR as an example, even if we sell it at a reasonable level, the main thing is we compound our rewards in the next bear market over here for the maximum rewards possible in 2025. So in this example, I show you how to turn $10,000 into basically 3.6 million, which is definitely possible. So we can kind of extend this out and exacerbate it a little bit over here for the $1,000, sort of investments, okay, if you will. Now that would kind of come, in my opinion, from number 4 here. So phase 4, right? So guys, with that said, of course, this is going to be free for you to go ahead and view yourself. Take the time, all the links work, go through, do your research, analyze how much risk you want to take in this sort of thing. Of course, ideally, you want to farm as many airdrops as possible. Use that as well as the launch pads to consistently run that sort of machine, washing machine, and then reinvesting back into, ICOs or IDOs or even just quality layer 1 projects as well. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Take good care of yourselves. Talk to you soon. Bye.